She was anywhere near me and I looked away. She walked out with her father. I went to the teller and asked them for the cameras. She said they'd only give them to the police. I asked her name and wrote it down, paid my bill and went straight to the police station, where I informed them a call was about to come in saying that I'd broken the injunction and they'd need to arrest me. I was saving them the trip and me the hassle, and I was here to explain what happened. They didn't care and they sent me home. I stayed at my girlfriend's that night and was surprised not to have got a call. I returned home the following night and the police were at my door. I was arrested and sent straight to court. Thankfully, after what felt like an absolute eternity, the judge saw this all for the complete crap it was and no further actioned me. Which is really sad, to be honest, because when you've been through something like that, all you want to hear is not guilty, because I knew damn well I wasn't guilty. But when you have really bad confidence, someone's accusing you of all that, you get to the point you start to think you deserve it, even when you don't. You find the other thing you do is when you're going over hard material, hard history, you say things in the third person. I just realised I went back into that habit. They actually offered me damages, and I was shocked. I was completely innocent, but no one spoke to me at damages. I still wonder what I could have got for that at the time. But I replied, I just want to go home. So I did. So I can completely understand why people distrust the police. At one point during questioning, a female officer sat right next to me. Her leg was touching mine and she said, "It's okay, honey. We don't have anything on you anyway." She smiled warmly. At first I thought she'd noticed how nervous I was, being chucked in and out of cells. When I realised what she actually meant was, if you're guilty, here's your chance to say something like, "Oh, that's good then." Jesus Christ. Even the trained people thought I'd done this. I hadn't. So I can see why people don't like the police, the distrust and the fear. Hell, back in Macclesfield they were scared of coming onto Morwell Road. But today, they'll give you a fine for having a coffee in Wales when you break a COVID lockdown. It's a bit of a joke. If you think it's different today, let's not forget Sarah Everard, who was kidnapped by police officer Wayne Couzens, who raped and strangled her before dumping her body in a pond. Okay, maybe something a little close to home. I was working. I'd left the factory to have some food on the wall outside. It was a nice day when a fella starts shouting towards the shop next door. He's pacing and generally being aggressive. "You'll come back, you always do." Sounded like standard domestic, no drama. I was tucking into my cheese sandwich. Guy gives me a filthy look, gets in his car and takes off. A woman comes out of the shop with a friend, shakes her head and storms off. The guy returns 5 minutes later, parks in the car park of the shop. She comes out, says he can't park there, and they start arguing. He tries dragging her into the car. She hits him and he leaves. She's crying. She returns to what I assume is her workplace. 5 minutes later, a cop car pulls up with 2 women in it. The same guy pulls up, parks around the corner, walks past the police car to go into the shop. I'm assuming goes in the scene with the woman again. I approach the oblivious police, rather. "Excuse me, ladies, I think the fellow you're looking for just walked into the building." They looked at me blankly. It's been kicking off for about 20 minutes. It's a domestic. The woman in the car nodded at me, and then she drove away. Okay, let's get back to the Everard case for a minute. I'm not covering it, so this is just basic information I've got inside like an hour online. A quick Google search on 29th of May 2022 informs me from joiningmetpolice.co.uk that all convictions, cautions, criminal investigations and bindovers must be declared. They don't mean you'll automatically be rejected from joining the force. So let's try reading that again. All convictions, cautions, criminal investigations and bindovers must be declared. They don't mean you'll automatically be rejected from joining the service. Okay. Now, 6 years before Wayne Couzens brutally murdered Sarah Everard, he was investigated for a case of indecent exposure. He was accused by a member of the public who said he was driving whilst naked from the waist down. At the time, he was working as an officer with the Civic Nuclear Constabulary in Kent, an armed police force tasked with protecting nuclear sites. He was married with 2 children and he frequently used prostitutes. As if that's not enough, 2 further accounts were discovered in February, 2 weeks before he killed Sarah. After he killed her, he took his family out on a day trip to a site near to where he'd burnt her body with petrol just days previously. According to Wales Online article, he was known to his colleagues affectionately as the rapist. There's much more to this article. I just wanted to mesh the two in with Wenzel, my father, who also had the ridiculously high sex drive, who also had several women, although as far as I know in my father's case, not prostitutes, who also sexually abused victims and also got a psychological kick by returning to and taking children to the site where he killed somebody. Here's another article, this time by Zach Garner-Perkis. Mark, whose name has been changed by the newspaper and photographs of his face are not shown throughout on My London News. Mark was working at the Met as a special when, through whatever set of circumstances, he was tasked with trying to prevent a teenage girl from taking her own life. I did everything I was trained to do. I took off the silly hat, stab-proof vest and my tie, but no matter what I did, it didn't work. She killed herself anyway, whilst Mark watched helplessly. Unfortunately, the upset didn't end there. Not long after he'd witnessed this, at work, a relative of his partner took their own life. As he was assisting his partner through their bereavement, two of his grandparents died in quick succession. Initially, he was told to take as much time off as he needed. However, upon return to work, everything changed. He wasn't trusted to work on the front line any longer. He was mismanaged information in the hopes he'd mess up, and so he'd get called up. A direct quote from My London News website says, "The negative reaction to him disclosing issues with his mental health has also caused Mark problems which continue to this day. I only got diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder this last year and it's taken 7 years. I hid my mental health because I had the attitude if I was honest about it, said I was suffering and needed time off, I would be punished. So for the longest time, I didn't want to talk about it. Before his diagnosis, Mark's fear of what might happen if he spoke about his feelings pushed him to a dark place. He moved from one doctor to another and struggled to find the right treatment. I was battered from doctor to doctor. They told me just take more meds, but I was literally waking up in the middle of the night with cold sweats like I was there again. Their response was, don't worry, just have more antidepressants. PTSD and alcohol dependency go hand in hand, because when you're not diagnosed and you've not got the right tools, alcohol will make you sleep deeper, but for shorter. Kind of numbs the pain. Quite a lot of people drink to stop the flashbacks. I was drinking every day. Sometimes I'd get up in the morning at 9 a.m, pour a glass of rum into a coffee mug. The most frightening aspect of having officers with untreated mental health conditions is the potential impact it has on the public, Mark explained. When you start suffering mentally, you stop caring, and that's not fair on like victims of crime, he said. During his time working for the Met, he allegedly witnessed other behaviours he thought were wrong. We had a senior police officer who'd been there for years who could make charging decisions. If we ever drove past a black person, he'd be like, we're stopping them. When we asked why, he'd say they look out of place. You can't just stop someone because they're black. It was a university town that attracted a lot of people of different cultures, he claims. Mark alleged that people were unfairly searched who came from different age groups. They could be fathers with their family or students out with a group of friends. A couple of times there were larger groups and only the black people were searched. False reasons were given for why the people were stopped, such as there had been burglaries or drug-related activity in the area involving people matching their description. 99% of the time nothing was found, Mark claims. There was only one non-white member of Mark's team, an Asian officer who he claims was referred to by the majority of the group as our token ethnic. He would allegedly be deployed from the van to prove the force was not being racist if people were accusing them. According to Mark, the Asian officer was encouraged to play along with the jokes, making comments like, "Can't be racist if I'm here, can it?" Eventually, however, he left the police. This prompted one officer to suggest he was going to work in his uncle's corner shop, whilst doing offensive impersonations of Indian accents. Mark goes on to explain, in addition to the racist behaviour, he claims he witnessed disturbing actions by male colleagues towards female members of staff, who expressed some shocking opinions. Blokes would come in who were victims of domestic violence. A colleague would be like, "What the fuck's that about? Hit her back." On work nights out, he claims senior officers would frequently be inappropriate with younger female officers, and sexual assault was a regular occurrence. These blokes are just like spanking their female colleagues, squeezing their arses and making comments about putting their face in their breasts. It was just so commonplace and accepted. Now it looks to me like Mark had finally had enough, and who can blame him? It must have been incredibly difficult witnessing the suicide, without them having the added bereavements of home life that were associated. Must have felt like he couldn't turn to anyone, not his workplace, due to the borderline hostile work environment at work, and toxic at least, not to mention his partner, because she was going through her own concerns as her relative had committed suicide, and he'd just lost his grandparents. Where was he supposed to turn? Don't the police have some kind of counsel and support? Then if he was to take that up, he'd likely to have been seen as a liability, as he was when he returned, and he was treated as such regardless. The Met did respond to Mark with a blanket statement about there being no place in the Met for discrimination, bullying or sexual harassment, that they have added extra support and training for higher-ranking officers. The blanket statement is much more elongated than this on the website, however is essentially the same thing. Interestingly, at no point do they claim to be investigating Mark's concerns. You'd be forgiven if you believe this stereotypical and archaic behaviour was many years ago. The article was from the 31st of May 2022. Tell you what, let's just do one more. Because I can totally understand the twitching eyes here, thinking something doesn't read right. Why is there no picture of his face? Why have they changed his name? How do we know it even occurred? This one's from the Guardian UK. However, due to the age of the victim and circumstances, again the names have been changed. From the website The Guardian. A 15-year-old girl of mixed white and black ethnicity was so traumatised after being strip-searched by Met Police officers she tried to kill herself, her mother has said. Olivia, which is not her real name, was menstruating when she was handcuffed and searched in front of male officers after more than 20 hours in custody. Which, let's be fair, it sounds a bit fishy, doesn't it really? Not searched until 20 hours in custody. We're not in America here. We don't have hundreds of people lined up ready to go through hurdles in jail. We generally get nicked and have to line up in front of all the police in the office of the desk. Then we get DNA'd, fingerprinted and searched. Search is usually a case of just emptying your pockets, removing your trainers and your belt. When I was nicked, I had joggers on with a tie cord, so they made me change into some of their trousers. However, nobody at any point touched me during the change and search. They don't generally wait 20 hours and then strip search you. What the hell? Her mother, Lisa, also not a real name, had told officers her daughter was autistic, had learning difficulties, and had been self-harming, according to the investigation by BBC Radio 4's File on 4 programme. Lisa said the ordeal had a devastating impact on Olivia's mental health. She became quite reclusive, spent a lot of time in her room, and continued to self-harm in secret. She was saying she's not going to be here anymore and she's not going to live to be an adult. A few weeks later, Lisa said Olivia attempted to take her own life. Now, as a father of two girls, I can actually believe this. My eldest is 8. Although she's super smart, plays chess, really good at karate, top of her class for most subjects. Even her, when she found out that we kill animals for food, she said, I don't want to be on Earth anymore, people suck. And as much as she had no intent behind it, she was upset for a while, as any kid would be. Now imagine your world's been rocked anyway by being taken in. Then you have to go through this ordeal as a minor, as a female, as someone who's autistic, against people you're supposed to be able to trust, to protect and serve. How can she ever have faith in any authority figure again? This incident happened in December 2020. The same month, a 15-year-old black girl known as Child Q was strip-searched while menstruating by Met Police officers at her school in Hackney, East London. A safeguarding review concluded that racism was likely to have been a factor. Lisa told the programme she believed racial stereotyping was a factor in her daughter's case. She said Olivia had been out with friends when they had a disagreement with 2 boys. They called the police, allegedly the victims of an attempted knife-point robbery. Nothing was discovered when she was searched by police, but she and her friends were arrested. So a robbery may or may not have occurred. Olivia was searched by police already and arrested, and no weapon was found. Then begs the question, why is she being searched a second time in the cells? At some point, Olivia was found to be in possession of a blade from a knife, which her lawyer later argued she used to self-harm. How? She'd already been searched. Lisa was isolating with COVID-19 at the time, but made repeated calls to the police station to raise concerns about Olivia's background and mental health. After more than 20 hours in custody, she was discovered to be in possession of a sharpened stick, which she used to self-harm.